Hey guys, so today's project is I have a love for typography, like really, and in particularly I love numbers. And so if you were to look around my space, you would see like numbers everywhere. So I have these numbers cut out for the holidays and I want to put them on my mantle. And so it's a 2 and a 5, so 25. So it's a Christmas decoration, right? But I think these are super cool, and I actually have kits available. So if you guys are interested in the kits to make these yourself, I'll put the link down below exactly where you guys can find them. But these are super cute. They're big. You guys can see, really significant. And I want to decoupage them. I pulled out the Red Damask, which is one of our Christmas designs. And I'm thinking that I'm going to use this. I think I'm going to use the Red Damask because that'll be less fussy. And I think that will make the numbers settle really nice. And it's going to be a way to add a pop of color to my mantle as well. Hi, my name is Royce Hunt Bell, owner and operator of Roycycled Treasures. Let's get started. So in order to get started with our decoupage projects, the first thing I want to do, you guys, is paint my numbers white. If you've been following me for any amount of time, you already know, you've already heard this. But I always like to paint my surfaces white so that whatever design I'm decoupaging onto my pieces really pops off of my piece. And so we're going to do a quick coat of Roycycled's Antique Via over these really quickly, just to give me a nice bright background to decoupage my pieces. Okay, so we're gonna do a super quick coat of white over these. And really, it can be a really like thin coat. It doesn't have to be full coverage. You're just creating a lighter background. So it doesn't even have to be like super thick. I'm almost dry brushing these. So my numbers are all painted. They're nice and bright and white, right? So that my design will pop off the surface. And now it's time for decoupage. So I'm just trying to decide like, if I want the paper to go this way or if I want it to go this way. I think this way makes the most sense. And I'm going to save paper, right? Because I'm only going to have to use half of this sheet for this project. But I'm thinking that, yeah, no, I said I was going to do a really simple project and I wasn't going to make it complicated, but I think I'm kind of going to make it a little bit complicated. I think I want to glaze my numbers around the edges and create a halo. So you can underpaint your decoupage to create certain effects. So I think for today, I want to go around the edges of my number with some glaze to deepen them. And what it's going to do is give these a little bit of dimension visually, right? So whenever you're painting, your light colors like expand and they come out into the space visually, and your dark colors recede. So by creating a dark surround on these, then we'll be creating like a false sense or a visual depth with these that you'll actually be able to see through the decoupage paper. So I'm going to do that really quickly with some glaze, and I'll show you guys how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to use, these are my Klingon brushes. I love them. This is an R18, and let me find some glaze. So this is Roycycled's glaze. That is what I'm using today. In my little bottle here is my magic mixture. It is 50% black walnut and 50% Java. It is my favorite combination. I use it like 90% of the time when I'm glazing. So we're going to do this. If you guys want to see a more in-depth video about underpainting your decoupage, you can find it here. There are a lot of things that you can do before you even decoupage to make your projects extra special. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to glaze this one. If you guys like the tutorials that you see here on my page, make sure and click and subscribe to the channel. If you hit the bell, you'll actually get an alert of whenever we upload new videos, and we generally upload videos at least once a week. So I'm just loading up my brush with some of my glaze here. I don't want a ton. And I'm just going to go around the edge. So I'm literally going to take my brush and kind of swipe it around here. And have the glaze go onto my piece. And I'm doing that to primarily to offload my glaze. And then when I don't have a lot left on there, I'll go back in and I will kind of blend that out a little bit more. And I want it to be pretty dark because remember, I'm going to be decoupaging over the top of this. And I want my underpainting to show up, whoops, under my paper. Through the paper, should I say. And it doesn't have to be super perfect because you're not going to be able to necessarily see like the details of the glazing. You're just going to see the shadow of it. So if you're looking at it and yours doesn't look perfect, like no worries. Seriously, you're going to be fine. So I'm going to do that over and over again until I've created basically a halo around my entire numbers. So just going to scrape off that extra glaze and then come back in and feather it out with my brush. And you guys will notice that I didn't seal this first, right? So you guys know that when you put glaze over chalk paint, the chalk paint absorbs it readily because it's so porous. But I really wanted this to be really dark, and so I did not seal my paint first. And that was by design. Now that I've glazed my pieces, you guys are thinking, oh no, Royce, what did you do? Don't panic, it's gonna be fine. So I will tell you one thing about the glaze. If you're glazing and decoupaging like in the same session, use your dryer, the heat on your dryer, to really make sure that your glaze is set because you don't want it to move when you start decoupaging. So I've just blasted this with my craft heater and now we are ready to go. So I'm going to decoupage this and you're going to see the shadow of the glaze behind the decoupage, but it's not going to be super prominent. And this works best, of course, when you're using papers that have like a lighter background. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this. I know I can cut this in half, and that's going to be plenty for this project. And the wonderful thing about these big sheets of paper is that I'm going to have plenty of paper to last me for another project. I say that these papers are accessible because of the price point. You can find these papers, depending on what market you're in, anywhere from like $5.50 to $7 a piece. And you get such a huge piece of paper that if you're using it for crafting, you can do a lot of projects out of one piece of paper. And of course, they're larger because if you're using them on furniture, they're large enough that you can cover the entire drawer or drawer front when you're working on a piece of furniture. So I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to just cut it in half. I think I'm going to be safe to do that. I'm going to fold it and see. Because I think 1/2 of this paper should be enough to cover each number. Yeah. I think we're golden. So I'm going to cut it in half again. And I like to make my paper pieces smaller so I'm not like fighting with a huge piece of paper when I'm decoupaging. So we'll use this one for the 2 and we'll use that one for the 5. And I'm going to go ahead and decoupage this much like I would any other project, you guys. I'm going to be using Wise Owl's 1 Hour Enamel today. The 1 Hour Enamel is my favorite to decoupage with, honestly. And especially if I'm going to be using transfers. So I'm going to be decoupaging these numbers today. It's a fairly simple project, but you guys, you could, if you bought the kit, you could paint and decoupage your numbers. You could put a layer of glass bead gel over the top of this. Would that not be fabulous? That would be fabulous. Or you could put some transfers on here to like beautify your numbers even further if you want it, right? So these numbers are not solid, right? Like there's a cutout in the middle here, you know, here and here. So in order for me to be able to do this like in several sections, I'm going to pretend like they're solid all the way across. And that way I don't cause any problems for myself about like trying to get to the inside of here or trying to get anywhere. So I'm turning it sideways like this, and then I'm going to treat it like it's just one big piece. so that I can work around the cutouts, and then I can just go in and trim those later. And I'm using a water-based sealer, but if you have Mod Podge at home, you can absolutely use Mod Podge. I always put a little bit of water in my Mod Podge so it's not as tacky if I'm using it to decoupage. I love using my water-based sealers because it's one and done. I can use this to decoupage and to seal my project, and then I'm finished. So I'm treating this as if it's one row, right? Look to the side and make sure I have full coverage and I don't have any areas that have little or no product on them, because that's how you get bubbles. And if you guys want like a seriously step-by-step tutorial on how to decoupage, you guys can find the video here. And it's just a really simple video showing you step-by-step how to decoupage using the traditional decoupage method. Of course, I could have used the iron-on decoupage method for this too, and I have a video for that too. You can find that here. When I'm manipulating my wet tissue paper, I like to use plastic wrap because it really helps me to be able to be a little bit more aggressive about, you know, making sure there's good contact between my paper and the surface and removing wrinkles. And it significantly reduces the odds that I'm going to tear my paper. And so I'm going to go ahead and do the other half. And you see how I don't have to worry about trying to work around those, not cutouts, but you guys know what I mean. The other areas of my numbers by treating it like it's just one big piece. Make sure and look from the side. When you look from the side, you can see like the light bounces off. So if there are any dry areas, they're gonna look dry, and then you know that you don't have enough product there. So when I look for the side, like that's what I'm looking for, is to look and see if there are any areas that have either little product or like no product. And a lot of times you think you've covered the entire surface, but you haven't. I like to hold my paper up and adhere it a little bit at a time. I feel like I'm more likely to push out any air bubbles when I do it that way. And you're gonna see some wrinkles when you decoupage, you guys, but the majority of those will come out as your paper dries, I promise. I always say it's like your favorite pair of jeans, right? The first day, you're like laying on the bed trying to get them buttoned up. The second day, they fit really nice. The third day, they fit perfectly. And the fourth day, they're too big and you gotta wash them and dry them again. I know I'm not the only one who wears my jeans multiple days. Or maybe I am. I don't know. So I'm going to set this aside and we'll do our number 5 the same way. And when we come back, you guys, we'll trim these together. So now that my paper is all adhered, you guys, and it's dry, we're going to trim it. And so we have these like weird areas here, right, where it's going to need to be cut out. So what I'm going to do is just make a slit here. And this is going to create space for me to be able to go in with my sandpaper to be able to sand either side without them interfering with each other, if that makes sense. So, and I'm going to do the same on this one. And just kind of cut those so that I can trim them and be able to trim around those cutouts. And of course I don't have to trim it perfectly because my sanding block is going to do that. So I'm using a 220 grit sanding block, although this one is pretty old, y'all. It's probably closer to a 300 grit, but this is what we're going to use today. So I'm going to trim this much the way I trim all my other decoupage pieces. I'm not going to go like up and down because I don't want to pull my paper up and tear it. And I don't want to go side to side either because my paper may shift and that can cause tears too. So for the cleanest trim with using your sanding block, you just want to go in one direction. So I'm just going to drag it down right over this edge, and that's going to trim it perfectly. And for these inside areas that are tight, I'm probably just going to use like my emery board because it's going to make it easier for me to get in there. So I'll come back to those. Whenever you're trimming your decoupage and you need to get into areas that are maybe a little tighter, an emery board is a perfect tool for this because it allows you to get into those tight places. It allows you to get into those tight places really easily. And voila, you guys. How pretty is that? And you guys can see that you really can't see the glaze like a lot, right? But you can see it there. But when we seal this, that's actually going to be more apparent. So let me clean off my surface area and then we'll come back and we'll seal these together. So now that we have these all decoupaged, we are going to seal them. I think I'm going to use the same brush that I used to decoupage with, but I stuck it in my water, so I got to dry it out a little bit. Maybe not that many paper towels, Royce. And so I'm just going to seal it using Wise Owl's 1 Hour Enamel, the same product I used to decoupage. And so I'm going to go back over this. When I go back over my project, it is going to buckle and wrinkle a little bit, but I'm going to leave it alone, you guys. I'm going to leave it alone, let it dry overnight, because I know that those wrinkles are going to go away. But you'll see that when you seal your piece and the water becomes a little bit more transparent, that you can see that underpainting even more. And it just adds another element of design to your projects. And if you have any areas, like I have an area here where I didn't put enough product, so I can just go under there now and put a little bit more product and tack that down. No big deal. And my project is done. Now again, if you wanted to add some more bling to your pieces, right? Because the holidays are all about the sparkle. You could. I think some glass bead gel over this paper would be so beautiful. It would catch the light so pretty in your space. You could add molds to this if you wanted. There's all kinds of things that you could do to your work, but this is how I'm going to leave mine, because you guys know I want to grunge it up some more, but I'm not. I'm going to behave. I think that these are going to do a really good job of bringing color and typography to my mantle for the holidays. So thank you guys so much for joining me for this super quick project. Again, I just had some laser cut numbers. I do have a kit for this on my website, so if you're interested, the link is in the comments. I just painted it with a quick coat of Wise Owl's Antique Via, and we created like in Halo using glaze. My favorite combination of 50% Java, 50% black walnut, and then we used 1 Hour Enamel and Roycycled decoupage paper to decoupage this piece, and I used the 1 Hour Enamel to also seal it, and it's done. Super easy, super quick, and I think this will be fabulous in anyone's space. Thank you so much for joining me, you guys. If you liked today's tutorial, be sure and subscribe to my channel. If you click the bell, you'll actually get an alert whenever we upload a new video, which is usually once a week. There isn't anything that I did today, you guys, that you guys cannot do. You guys can do this, and you can do it today. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.